Right now, in a special edition of Full Circle Florida, my deep dive, AI and the future of work. Amazon says progress means fewer humans. Are we really okay with that? Sacrificing jobs for faster delivery? Are we that addicted to convenience? Where do you fit in tomorrow's economy? And we're getting real about why health insurance premiums are skyrocketing. And the spoiler here, it's a little bit messier than just pinning it all on insurance companies alone. And my conversation with Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins. Is he gearing up for a run for governor? He opens up about everything from property insurance to property taxes and what should be done about the rising cost of living in the land of sunshine. As we turn the page to a new year here on Full Circle Florida, we like to take a look at the future, including who could be this state's next governor. One possible name, Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins, the decorated combat veteran who served his country on the battlefield, is now looking to gear up for a new kind of battle, the political kind. Of late, affordability and property taxes have been the conflicts here at home, state level and federal level. It's an issue in Florida. You know, property taxes, I know, are top of the legislative agenda going into 2026, right, which happens early this year in January. Do we have the details on that nailed down yet? Because I think the concern is this going to be a rush job like the condo bill where you had to retroactively fix it? Do we know what we're getting into?
Sure. Well, the condo bill wasn't necessarily a rush job. It was put in and a lot of time and effort was there. And I think there were some things that had to be tweaked, right? Ultimately, that happens. And I'm glad that we're having that discussion. So here's what I can tell you. There can only be one initiative that moves forward when it comes to property tax. Wherever it ends up, there can only be one. If you have more than that, there's almost 0% chance. Often, I remind myself that we have 2 ears and one mouth for a purpose. When you talk to the citizenry across the state, you know what they tell me? They want property tax relief. They want homesteaded properties to be free and clear of the government. That's the American dream. Our income tax is fantastic. We don't have it, right? Property tax being exempt on your homesteads would be amazing. So why do we think we can do this? It's a relatively small portion of the money that comes from property tax that is actually homesteaded properties. In many counties, it's between 8 and 11%. And those numbers we're going through and measuring every single county. But here's what I want to tell people. We will not and we cannot continue to play games when it comes to our law enforcement, our firefighters, our EMS, our schools, our roads. Stop the games.
Will Democrats have a voice at the table?
They always have a voice at the table.
Even though they're a minority party?
Well, they're all in the chamber, right? They show up, they have an opportunity to use their voice. I will tell you what, if you sit there and you do this respectfully and we have a conversation, yes, everyone's voice is heard. And there have been many times when the Democratic Party has brought out something that was truly, okay, like, hey, that's a lesson learned. Great take. And we did it. You saw that happen multiple times this last session where I think it made the bill better. We often forget that the majority of the legislation that comes through the Senate and through the House is bipartisan.
The other big issue that I know is going to be a top priority is property insurance. I know that there's probably a lot of people in the DeSantis administration that probably feel like, what more can we do at this point? They passed a lot of reform a few years ago, but people still tell us every day this is an issue that they're running into. We got lucky this hurricane season. I don't remember the last time that a hurricane did not hit the state of Florida.
Yeah, it's been a few years.
Anywhere, but that's the exception, not the rule. How healthy do you think the market is, and what more can be done on the legislative level to insulate Florida homeowners from disasters?
Fantastic question. I'm actually going to tie it back into property tax at the end. Look, we did tort reform, it worked. 77% of the litigated claims in the country came from the state of Florida. 17% of the claims came from the state. That math doesn't math. I'm a guy with 10 fingers, 5 toes. I'm telling you, the math doesn't math, right? You can only, let's use math to our advantage. That's one. Two, when that was filed or getting ready to pass, people flooded the system, the courts, with claim after claim after claim. There were thousands across the state. That backlog was dynamic and huge. We had to work through that. And then as you mentioned in your point, we got whacked by hurricanes, many ultimately just on top of each other, boom, boom, boom. And we had a lot of issues. We've worked through that. But is the market stable? Yes. We have, I believe, 16 companies. I think there's one more coming in shortly. That'll be 17. Secondary market is opening up. The governor is flying and going to go take a trip to actually go talk about that with secondary and reciprocals and other people to draw more people in. Having a couple years without hurricanes would be amazing, but in the end, yes, the market is stabilizing.
There are some that would argue, look, yes, maybe some reform was necessary because it was becoming overwhelming in terms of the litigation. But it also strips, some would say, the power of those who run into a problem with their insurance company and trying to hold them accountable if they're denied coverage.
So I've heard the conversation, I've heard the quotes, but I'll tell you that the bills that were ran to roll back tort reform said in their statements, within the body, their own analysis, that would have raised property insurance, it would have raised insurance across the state. That's the math. We had a sue-happy state. The billboard attorneys were making it very, very hard. That tort reform had to happen. Now, can we have more transparency in rates? Absolutely. I think you'll probably see that this year.
States operate differently than the federal government. Exactly, because otherwise we'd be in a huge mess. I'm curious about your thoughts on how this government shutdown was handled. And should there be more protection from the state if the federal government is going to be so unpredictable and you're going to have lawmakers attack each other and use everyday people as political pawns? Should states like Florida act independently and have their own way to protect themselves?
So what I'll say first off is let's talk about what they were fighting for. They wanted to have more benefits for illegal aliens. Why are we fighting for people who aren't from our country to have more benefits at the expense of our citizens? First off, they also wanted Medicare and Medicaid to not have income verification. Gee, why would that be? The details in the math, right? That's not the right thing to fight for. That was never serious. Don't you think it's odd that they're willing to negotiate as soon as Virginia and New York are done, and now we're free and clear, and they're willing to find and broker a peace deal? It was politics over people.
Aren't the Republicans just as guilty? They don't have a plan to fund.
I'm not absolving them, but yes, there's times when they could have done a whole heck of a lot better.
And it looks like we're going to run into this again in January. I mean,
it's very possible.
2 months.
Very possible, but you know what? That's why state governments matter. I grew up on welfare. I grew up without 2 wooden nickels to rub together. I ate commodity cheese. My family was on and off of food stamps, so if you don't think I understand it, I grew up in it. I lived it. And I pulled myself up, and I worked through the system. The government's not the answer. Working public-private partnerships, elevating people without the government shelling out other people's money to solve problems is the solution.
Governor's race is starting to get crowded.
I heard about that.
Are you planning to run?
Am I planning to run? That's a great question. Here's what I'll tell you. Right now I'm serving as lieutenant governor, 23.5 million people, and I love it. Man, what an absolute blessing. I went through a very laborious process as I laid out to you, and frankly I have everywhere. I've been very transparent. I wish people would listen to the words I use. I pick my words pretty wisely. 3 stages. My family, the area around me, the community, my support structure, and then I wanted to see how my leadership was received. But you know what's been really a blessing to see? As I've gone around this state, people want leadership. They don't want politicians, which is great. I've been in politics for 3.5 years. I know how to lead, though. I know how to solve problems. I know how to stand in there and fight beside people. And frankly, I don't give a crap what your political party is. 23.5 million people, I have to serve, and I get to serve every single one of them, whether they vote for me or not. That matters to me because in my mind, I am always my father's son. I'm always the kid who grew up on welfare. I'm always the kid who had to fight and scratch to get through every single thing. That's a dream. That's worth fighting for. And we are very close to finalizing our goals and plans. Not afraid of the fight, not afraid to serve. But in the end, I want to make sure that as we do this, we're not making this an ego trip for me. I'm done with politicians and egos. It's not about me. It shouldn't be, it never can be. It's about we the people across this state, and what is the vision and the path of success that's going to matter the most for Florida, because as you said, there are always problems. 23.5 million people, more are moving here every day. They deserve good leadership that cares about them, that has experience similar to them, and has a dream that frees them up to reach their potential, free of the government reaching in and destroying that. So more to follow.
Sounds like you're close to making a decision.
We're right on that doorstep.
All right. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for your time as always.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Next, the real culprits behind health insurance and the spike hitting your paycheck. Welcome back. Here's a question for you. Has the premium pain and the cost of your insurance really hit your budget yet? Well, recently open enrollment began, and so did that yearly game of risk for millions of Americans. Here's my conversation with economist Binga Al-Jalori on what exactly is driving up the cost of health care. Everyone says that hospitals and doctor groups are getting bigger and stronger. I'm just curious, what chunk of your premium today goes to places like that basically run their local market? I see so many glitzy TV ads for hospitals these days, pharmaceutical companies, with drugs that names I can't pronounce for conditions I've never heard of. They're on constantly in primetime television. Is that where the money's going? Is that why the hospital charges you $100 for a Tylenol? We've got urgent care centers in the Tampa Bay area that seem like Starbucks now. They're on every corner. When people see that, they start to question, is this why I'm paying so much for health insurance?
That's a great question. And I think the one thing to realize is that this is such an intricate system and it's hard to disentangle what the drivers of cost are. And so you think about there's the manufacturers, there's the insurers, there are pharmacy benefit managers, there's a pharmacy itself, along with the hospital and the doctors. And so it's hard to disentangle those things. And I think one of the things that we need to think about, this is more of like a long-term thing, is introducing transparency to the whole system so you know where the money goes, where it's coming from, where you're talking about a brand name drug versus generic drug versus what the pharmacy needs versus what the manufacturer needs. That's the kind of thing you have to think about.
And we certainly have made advancements in medication. I mean, you look at this, how much of this is pure profit, if you want to look at it cynically, versus people having the availability to get more scans earlier for things like cancer, more medication for almost anything. That healthcare today in 2025, you could argue, is much more layered, much more thorough and advanced than, say, 1985, but you are paying a lot more for it.
That is correct. So, and that's the other thing is we are healthier, we have more advances, there are more diseases that we're able to pick up earlier. We think about, doing colonoscopy scans at age 40 and things like that. And then we have, if you find it, there are procedures you can do and things you could take to be able to alleviate it. You think about people, life expectancy, where people were living to 60, 70, now people are living longer. So that's part of it, is like to be able to get those advancements, we have to put in the investment and the research and development to be able to get that.
But at what point does this system break? With the average family's premiums hit, say, 20% of their take-home pay, people are faced with the prospect of not having health insurance and just hoping that nothing bad happens to them.
Exactly. And that's the thing about what's happening right now with the Affordable Care Act, the tax credits. There were tax credits that were, didn't make it cheaper, but did mitigate some of the higher costs. And now that the Congress has let that expire, that's going to make it really tough for people. And we have to put this in a broader context that, you're looking at what's happening with the SNAP program and those benefits going away. You look at higher grocery prices, individuals getting hit at all sides. And so you have to kind of advocate to your representative that, you want to be able to mitigate your costs.
Basic needs and affordability, perhaps the number one topic in the coming year of 2026. I know it certainly played a big role this week in the elections that we saw across the country. Binga Ajilore, Chief Economist, Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Thank you so much for your insights, sir. Really appreciate it. AI's job apocalypse. Amazon axes 14,000 workers this year to fuel the bot takeover. We'll talk about your future and all of it next. Welcome back here to Full Circle, Florida. And here's the question: is artificial intelligence killing jobs faster than it's creating them? Are we sacrificing the human workforce for push-button convenience? And how bad does it get before it gets better? My deep dive with AI expert Daniel Haritos. So Daniel, thanks for stopping by to talk about this. This is very much in the news. Amazon just cut 14,000 people. They laid off 14,000 workers to pay for artificial intelligence, their technology that they want to use. What do you think that says about how fast this is now moving? How many white-collar jobs are going to get eaten up? Blue-collar jobs going to get eaten up? Real talk here. What do you think is coming in the next 5 to 10 years? This seems to be accelerating even faster than what people were predicting.
Yeah, I think, firstly, I think it's probably not going to be as dramatic as we think, although it is going to be a bit of a shock. But I think a lot of those roles are going to be moved around into other positions, basically. I think there's still a lot of management roles. Managing AI is not as simple as like unleashing it on your company and then letting it go. So I think that's, it might go slower than we think. Sometimes we think technology is going to fire out at us, but actually, we get a good 10 years for it to adapt. So In saying that, there are going to be challenges, and like we're seeing at the moment with jobs going, and then seeing where those people land. Essentially, those people need work, and they need to be buying things from Amazon and Apple. So they need to get back in the workforce at some point. Right?
And I want to believe that. I want to believe that in the end, technology doesn't destroy jobs. But Amazon, Google, they're all saying AI first, no new hires. Which other industries are about to get hit like this? And isn't this just going to make the rich richer? I mean, I hate to be so cynical about this, but that's how people are reading it, at least this week. It sounds like you're saying, short-term pain, long-term gain. We have to make some adjustments before we see the benefits.
Yeah, that's right. They're saying, hey, no new hires. That's a lot that has to do with the fact that they need to find the new roles to manage the AI. So, that takes time. You can't just go, this is a whole new system implemented into, systems, whether they're admin roles or, coding roles. AI can be used for a lot of things. So I think figuring out what those new white collar roles are, and then, getting them, rehiring them at some point. And then, others will have to find other things to keep them occupied in terms of work and training and figuring out where they can find maybe smaller companies to go to, or starting their own business even.
Yeah, I mean, in the utopian vision of artificial intelligence, I've heard people say, get used to the 3-day work week, that maybe that's where we're going, and we use this technology to make our everyday jobs easier and lives easier, and then we get to figure out what life is for and living it. But when we talk about reskilling for the workers, easier said than done. It sounds nice, but what actually works? What should companies and governments do so that people don't get left behind, like what we saw with, factory automation, or even just exporting, how America did it and our economy did it, was we exported jobs overseas, and now we're trying to undo that. At least the Trump administration is trying to, with the tariff war with China, although a lot of people say that's unrealistic. It sounds like this is another Pandora's box, genie in the bottle, and once you let it out, there's no putting it back in.
Yeah, that is definitely a case, and that can be very scary, especially in terms of on a personal level, in terms of security, and that's something that we're going to have to stay on top of. Just like any technology, maybe this more than others, because we're scared of its having a life of its own. But I think we'll figure out ways, and I think we're going to have more time than we think, like I said, and as it unfolds over the next few years, or next 10 years or 20 years, we'll put into place securities, I think. I mean, we're going to have to. We don't have a choice. So I think we're going to do it, and I think it's going to be an important part of, rolling out AI.
AI is already doing the data stuff, the customer service stuff that got those Amazon folks apparently fired. Where's the human, going to win in this thing? Are we kidding ourselves? Will AI actually make jobs in the end? You're saying it will. We just have to figure out what those jobs are going to be.
Correct. Yeah, and AI, the human factor, where is that going to be? I think there's quite an important role for it. I think in human business, and when people have the opportunity, most people are going to want to prefer to have a human touch in their business, whether that's going to a restaurant. And, even if they're taking your order digitally, sometimes, we're going to want that. And I think we're going to want that for a long time. A good example of that actually is the self-checkouts at supermarkets, which turned up, 20 years ago, or even less in some countries. And I would have thought that would have been already, a thing that everybody just does, self-checkout. Right. You don't even have a human option. But there's still a huge demand for it, no matter where you go in the world. Absolutely. Whether it's Germany or Texas. People want to be served by a human.
The people that, the lady that, I don't know her name, but she knows my name, and at the local grocery store here, and she knows what my kids do, that they're into sports. I mean, I enjoy the conversation. It's nice. And I'll tell you the other thing, I was on the phone with my insurance company the other day, and it was the whole automated maze you got to go through. And I finally, because they weren't understanding what I was saying, and I finally just said, help, again and again, and it triggered sending me to an actual human being who then got my questions answered and saved the day. If the layoffs keep coming, are we going to see rules about using AI to fire people, or is tech just going to run too fast for anyone to catch up? Is there a role for policymakers and the government to say you can't, if you're going to lay off 14,000 people, you got to figure out how to create 14,000 jobs, or should it be laissez-faire, let the market figure it out, and government interference is not the answer?
Yeah, we're going to have a bit of both. We're going to discover the culture of AI and then set rules based around that. We don't know what's, again, we've got to play it by ear, like you said, and we're trailblazing. I mean, everybody is, not just America. So there's a lot of good ideas being thrown around, and I think, I'm sounding very positive about it. There's going to be a lot of issues too, but I think, we don't have a choice with a lot of this stuff, and it's probably not going to be as hard and as scary as we think. If we look at how we, adapted to the internet, it's a long, slow process, but we always get scared in the beginning. But I think a lot of the time it turns out in our favor.
Fortune favors the brave, as they like to say. Daniel Haritos with the Switcheroo app. Yeah. Thank you so much for your insight into this whole new world of artificial intelligence. Appreciate it. Full Circle Florida will be right back after this. Thanks for watching this special edition of Full Circle Florida. You'll find us every Sunday morning at 8:30 right here on Tampa Bay 28, as well as our free 24/7 streaming news channel, Tampa Bay 28 Plus. We'll see you again next time.